Today we have our first student podcast made by Ibtissam, The Paradox of Fear. All right, go ahead and listen.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is my first time recording a podcast, and I have to say, I'm really curious to see where this journey takes me. Actually, I've always loved listening to English podcasts because they've inspired me, taught me new things, and even helped me improve my English level. And I thought, why not try creating one myself? Actually, I'm not sure what this will become, and I don't even have a fancy name or extraordinary ideas yet for my podcast. But I know I want it to be like a space for exploring meaningful topics, personal growth, and maybe even a little bit of fun. And I'm also using this as an opportunity to practice my English because I believe that growth happens when we step out of our comfort zone. So now I'm taking the courage to step out of mine. However, if you hear me stumble over my words or make a mistake, know that it's all part of the process and I am here to learn just like you. So, for today's episode, I've chosen a topic that's deeply personal and I think actually it's universally relatable. The topic is about what you resist, persists. Actually, it's a powerful expression, and I guess that almost all of us have experienced it at some point the fear of something. You know, for example, that voice in your head that says, what if I try and it doesn't work out? Or what if I'm not good enough? Well, what if I told you that the thing you're afraid of might ended up shaping your life in a way that you don't want to be? And I said this because I've experienced this myself, and I know that many of you have too. So today we're gonna dive into how fear can define us, how we can recognize it, and most importantly, how we can turn it into something positive. So I'll start by sharing a bit about my own journey with fear, and I'd love to hear yours as well. So if you have any story or anecdote about fear, feel free to reach out and share it in comments. Okay, so at first, let's start with my story with fear. Actually, a few years ago, when I was still a student, I was incredibly hardworking and motivated to learn and achieve good results. But every time I faced a challenge, I, I was terrified of failing. And because of this fear, I often chose the easiest path, avoiding challenges and telling myself I wasn't good enough or that at least I needed more time. Actually, this fear didn't protect me at all. However, it held me back, it made me doubt my skills, and keeps me stuck. So it's like it turned me into someone who avoided risks and always played it safe. Fortunately, I was surrounded by amazing supporters who helped me realize that my fear wasn't like just a fear of failure. It was actually a fear of success because my fear wasn't protecting me at all. It was keeping me from reaching my potential, actually. But once I took that first step, I was amazed by what I could achieve. And actually, along the way, I did fail and struggle many times for sure. But with each failure, I learned, I grow, and I became braver. And I actually realized that failure wasn't my enemy. In fact, it was my teacher. And now, thanks to facing what I was afraid of, I've succeeded and have become who I am today. So, why do we fear so much? And how can we control it? So, to answer to these questions, today I will show you the psychology behind fear, how it shapes our identities. Then I will show you some examples of people who turned their fears into fuel of success. And of course, at the end, I will leave you with actionable steps to start facing your own fears. Okay, so at first, let's talk about what really fear means. Actually, fear is an emotion that warns you of danger. It can be helpful, like avoiding real risks, or harmful, like stopping you from trying new things. And actually, there are many types of fear. We can face, for example, fear of failing, like someone's afraid of trying new things because they might not succeed. We can have fear of the unknown, like avoiding career changes or travel because we don't know what to expect. We can also face the fear of being rejected and worried people will not like or accept us. And also, we can have the fear of change, which is uncomfortable with anything new or different. And of course, we have another fear of losing something or someone who is very important. And actually, there are many other fears. Now, to dive deeply into the topic, I will highlight what some psychologists said about fear. For example, let's take Young's perspectives about fear, because this one actually helps us understand that we often fear the parts of ourselves that we hide away. And he called this hidden part the shadow. Young said that we have fear of our own bad side, which means the shadow, where we keep all the things we don't like about ourselves, like jealousy, selfishness, or anger. And actually, this shadow pushes these traits down because society or we ourselves think they are shameful or harmful. So we are often afraid to admit we have these darker parts or these darker sides. We're also afraid of being exposed, so we create a persona, which is like a social mask we wear to fit in and look good to others. But the problem is that shadow or that real of our press stuff can't stay hidden forever. Actually, it can come out in destructive ways like scandals or personal meltdowns, which is something people often fear, especially those in the public eyes like celebrities or artists. I can say that Young's perspective is really rich in terms of his analysis of fear because he also mentioned the fear of self confrontation. And actually, looking at our own shadow is very hard and painful to accept. It means honestly facing our demons and the things we deeply dislike about ourselves. So, projecting our fears onto others is like a strong proof to show you that what you hate and fear in someone or something else is often a reflection of what you've hidden and fear in yourself. Now let's see why fear has so much power over us. We can take, for example, here the example of trickster. Actually, trickster is like the class clown who jokes about serious things, and people might laugh at them, but their humor forces everyone to see the truth, especially the truths others are too afraid to face. And actually, these tricksters aren't scared of feeling silly or breaking rules. Instead, they show you that what you fear, like embarrassment or chaos, can actually make us stronger. And for example, by making fun of fear itself, they teach us that facing what scares us can lead us to freedom and wisdom. I also invite you to search a little bit about Nietzsche's book that's called Ibis. It's very interesting book because Nietzsche used this name as a metaphor of the unknown or for the unknown, for the chaos and the darker parts of life of ourselves. And he said that confronting difficult truths of fears doesn't make you weaker. In the contrary, it makes you real to see like parts of yourself you might not want to acknowledge. So our fear has a lot of power over us because it's linked to hidden parts of ourselves that we don't wanna face. And instead of looking inside, we push that energy onto others, which makes us feel like we're in the right while avoiding the hard work of self confrontation. So, this is why when we become aware of our shadow, it can actually help us become more complete as a person. Now, here are some simple exercises and journaling prompts that you can follow to help you understand and explore your own fears. Of course, these aren't absolute because only you truly know yourself, but they can be like a helpful first step toward facing what's within. So, the first advice, I really invite you to list and name your own fears. And you can, for example, ask questions. What is one fear that keeps showing up in your life? Write about when it usually appears, how it feels in your body, and what thoughts come with it. The second advice, know the root of your fear. Is it linked to a past experience, a belief you were thoughts, or something you've seen in others? And sometimes fear hides as a protection from failure, judgment, rejection, or maybe a pain. So if you write about what your fear might be trying to guard, you're gonna for sure like find the appropriate tips to face it. And of course, everything I said depends on your desire to talk to your shadow. I mean, try to ask questions to yourself. For example, if your fear could speak, what would it say? And what would you say back? So try to write like a short dialogue between you and your fear. So if you like follow this simple exercise, it can for sure help you bring like hidden thoughts and emotions in your awareness. Now, to sum up my podcast, remember, my listeners, that understanding your own fear isn't one-time event. It's actually a process. It's about building like a relationship with parts of you that you've ignored, avoided, or hidden away, and that's where that actually begins. So, if anything from today's episode resonated with you, I really encourage you to write about it. Talk to someone you trust, for example, or even share your thoughts in comments. This is going to help you for sure. And just remember, you're not the only one going through this stuck moment. And finally, if you feel ready, take like a small action today. Maybe it's naming a fear, maybe it's writing that dialogue with your own shadow, or maybe it's like just sitting quietly with the feeling you usually avoid. Be sure the small step matters. And now, thank you so much for being here, for listening, and until next time, take care of yourself and keep walking toward the truth of who you